Good evening and welcome everyone to another session of Manaha Wellbeing Dialogues in partnership with MTHR Global. My name is Vipul Agarwal and I'm a co-founder of MTHR Global and I'm your host for today. Um, Now, what is this whole HR well-being project that dialogues that we talk about? Uh, so essentially, when we talk about well-being, it's a very clearly demarcated space that we have created within organizations where we talk about well-being and wellness. We moved from wellness to well-being over a period of time, especially from physical, so to say, wellness to emotional and mental well-being. Now, what we've been doing in the last few months in partnership with Manaha Wellness and IMT Global Hyderabad, IMT Institute in Hyderabad, is the fact that we've been talking about wellness. Now, a lot of people have been talking about wellness and well-being. But what we've done is we have focused on the well-being for HR professionals. So when we started this conversation going, a lot of HR folks said, "Hey, why do you need a conversation around wellness for HR professionals? HR professionals, we are supposed to kind of manage this, right? And stress is part of our job, so there's no real need for us to really talk about it." But as we progress, now what we've done is we've done two things so far. We have started these dialogues, which is on every Thursday, and we get some friends like we have Brilliant this time. Um, who talk about their experiences and their journey of well-being and wellness. And we've got these CHRO roundtable conferences that are happening in every city. Mumbai is the next one. We've done it in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune. Mumbai is next, and then in Delhi. So these spaces that are being created uh, are essentially to create dialogues, talk about it, create awareness about this whole paradigm of well-being and wellness for the HR professionals. So, welcome to all who have tuned in today for the Mana Wellbeing Dialogues. Before we begin, I just want to kind of state. Uh, Please ask questions whenever you feel like, or comment whenever you feel like. We'll be happy to take on as many questions as we get. Brilliant, is here with us, and I'm sure he'll be happy as well. Uh, Now, our guest today is Brilliant SK, Chief People Officer of Times Pro. Uh, I've known Brilliant for a long time, and I've seen him grow in this space in a very brilliant manner. That was PJ. Well, welcome, welcome, Brilliant. Looking forward to having a great conversation today. Uh, by the way, we actually call him Baba B. We don't call him Brilliant. Okay, so Brilliant. Let's start with this. How did you get this moniker?
Oh, that's a long story. But before we get into that, thank you very much for having me over. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Thank you, MTHR. Thank you, Mana. And thank you, Vipul, for this conversation.
My pleasure.
It is said that when you start giving out too much of knowledge and information and start distributing gyan, people believe that you become a Baba of sorts. So, way back in the year 2007, as I was exiting one of the companies, they gave me a label saying you are the Baba, and it's happened to stick with everywhere I go. And I remember one incident where a person came to my office and was struggling to get in, but he was told that there is no person, and he called me and said, "I'm here outside." I said, "Impossible! I'm here. I'm waiting." Then he asked me to come to the reception, and he said, "Security guard, यही तो है." बोलता लेकिन आप तो बाबा को ढूंढ रहे थे.
Okay, so that's how it stuck, Baba B.
It's stuck. Yeah.
So Brilliant heads HR for Times Pro, which is part of the Bennett and Coleman company group. Again, I have seen him when he entered the organization. It was a smallish organization. When I say smallish, it was fairly large. But when you compare it to today, it was a smallish organization. But today, it is very, very large. So you want to talk about Times Pro and your organization, Brillian?
Absolutely. Thank you, Vipul. I'm a part of Times Pro. Times Pro is, if I were to put it in a simple term, higher edtech initiative of the Times of India Group. We were established about 10 years ago, and our focus is to cater to the learning needs of Indians at this point of time. Aspirations are high, who have career growth aspirations, and we offer a variety of curated and created programs, not just off the shelf, but customized, bespoke, partnership with various organizations, catering to all types of learning. So, in a nutshell, if you were to ask us what we would be known for, it is a one stop shop for any learning need for any learner, any age group. And I think, as Vipul, you rightly said, we were initially a small number. We are growing. We are continuing to look forward to the growth. Thank you so much.
Congratulations for your new setup. I heard in Bangalore.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. We set up a new Web 3.0 Center of Excellence in Bangalore.
Hmm. Okay, so let's come down to this whole conversation of well-being, wellness. What do you think? What, in your opinion, is this well-being, wellness? We talk about it a lot, but what does it finally boil down to you for you personally?
So it's like a trick question you're asking a Baba.
It's the right question to ask about.
So, I'll be very honest. Initially, like everyone else, I thought wellness is all about staying fit, health, that's it. However, over a period of time, thanks to my interaction with people, experiences, and the kind of environment that we've been, I realized for me, it's all about feeling good. Broadly in three categories. The fourth category I'm not consciously getting into because it's debatable. The first is physical, the second one is emotional, third is social, and the fourth is financial, which is a conversation for some other time. But when I say physical, it includes everything from what you eat, what you do, and what you don't do. Emotional is, do you really have the time? Are you making conscious efforts to spend time to relax? Are you spending time on yourself? And recently, about in 2019, I read about a wonderful concept called mindfulness, and I was stumped by the concept, and I felt, wow, this is something which we've been missing a lot.
Hmm.
Last but not the least, unfortunately, because of the way in which we are attuned to the corporate life, we miss out on the last element, which is the social element.
Hmm.
Now, social element is very critical, making time for friends, maybe volunteering for a cause, spending time with your near and dear ones, celebrating together as a community. And I think in some form, uh, even MTHR has played a role in building that community as we come together as friends. Yes, we connected as professionals, but then that
Hmm.
bond went on from just a network to a connection to a relationship. And that's what I feel is a true definition of being a person who's fit and feel good about physical, emotional, and social part.
Perfect. So, in this journey that you've been in, so I agree with you. MTHR is, for me as well, though I'm one of the co-founders, but for me as well, it has brought in so much of richness in my life. Friends like you and so many others, whom I can just pick up the phone and talk to anytime, reach out for any problems I'm facing, and I think that's one integral part of our wellness
Absolutely.
journey. The well-being journey. So in this process, what are the challenges that you face? Because I've seen you, again, sometimes participating in the marathon, etc., etc. How, थोड़ा journey के बारे में बताओ और.
Yeah. So, we always talk about the work-life balance and everything about saying, it's good to hear when people talk about in conferences, but when it comes to applying it,
Yeah,
it
perfect.
becomes a challenge. So
Yeah.
I love to share this, and I think this is something new which I came up with. Every fit person says I have abs, ABS, but I would say I had ALBS, ALBS.
Okay.
Alert at work, lazy at home, B for bad eating habits, and S is the sedentary lifestyle. So I remember way back in the same company which gave me the name Baba, in 2005, as the marathon was nearing, I decided to participate, and one person just laughed at me. I was a slightly heavier version of what you see right now. Said, "तू क्या marathon दौड़ेगा?"
Mm.
And that triggered off something in me, and I was like, बोल कैसे सकता है ऐसा? How do you think, you know, how can you just overrule everything else just because I'm looking a bit plumpier?
Mm.
And that began a sort of a journey where I said, okay, if nothing else, I will run one marathon every year,
Mm. Mm.
if nothing else. And I would say thanks to that person who tried to poke me and make fun of the situation. As of today, as we speak, I have run about 15 half marathons, about 10 or 12 10K races, and 5K races quite a bit. But then what happened was COVID,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Mm.
COVID took the entire energy out of people, maybe because the always on mode, right from the time you log in till the end, you're just relaxing. You did not feel the need to move out from where you
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
in the comfort zone.
Mm.
And that shook me up badly because I stopped participating in marathon because marathons literally stopped. There were virtual runs. I tried participating in a couple of them, but I didn't feel that energy because you need that energy. You need that feeling of being together with people. And I felt somewhere I was not able to motivate myself.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
it is like I was always a good athlete, just for the sake of sharing. Always winning the 100 meters race, the long
Oh,
jump, the high jump, played football.
okay.
But
This is
everything changed when I joined a corporate. Zero sports. The only sports was running for a train, running for a bus, running for a auto. That's the only running that I did. And I would travel for almost about 4 hours per day. So exhaustion was something which was kicking in. And that's where the L of the abs came into me, where I
mm.
became a lazy couch potato. And mentally, physically, when you're tired, it's
Mm.
impossible. And you
Okay.
need some
Okay.
accountability
You
partner
need
to push you.
absolutely, absolutely.
And
So,
I feel that's what was one of the key challenges while COVID was there, but corporate life tends to tire you a lot, especially
mm,
especially when it comes to mind and body both being tired. It's
mm,
it's difficult.
I agree. I agree. And so, just for people to know, both me and uh, Baba B are in part of a small NTHR group, which pushes everyone else and each one of us to do a certain milestone in terms of steps a day, and that really helps in the accountability part of it that you mentioned, and which is why I brought,
Absolutely, absolutely.
because
And
then by
that's
the end of the
that's
day you have to actually log in and say, okay, this is what I did today. So then you're always worried about it.
And the best part is you feel that you need to do it not just for anything else, but because there is someone who's waiting for you to say, "Have you checked in?" Right?
Hmm.
And I think
Correct.
many of us, unlike Vipul who does it in the morning, some of us like me, I take it probably in the evening post work, but I make it a point to ensure that I finish that 5K, 5,000 steps
Correct.
completion. And
Correct. Correct.
yesterday was another high altogether.
Perfect. So again, just a reset or just a pause for people who have joined in. If you have questions, comments, they are welcome at any point in time in the conversation. Uh, so let's look at another aspect of it now, Brilliant. Um, there was a time when in an organization, well-being was synonymous with the health of the worker, the physical health of the worker. Any worker unwell, you give him leave, you give him some treatment, and your well-being, wellness, whatever agenda was done. Okay. Uh, Organization would give, some chutti utti, some leave, and that was the end of the story. Increasingly over the past few years, even pre-COVID, we had started increasing our conversations about well-being and wellness. Uh, I remember we started off with some yoga and meditation, and that also was looked upon as, yeah, organization mein jaate ho, are you going to do yoga there? Are you going to do meditation there? Why the hell are you doing it there? And people used to ask us that. And today, the whole concept has moved from this physical well-being to mental and even emotional uh,
Absolutely.
well-being. So, what are your thoughts around this? And do you think
So
this is
yeah,
relevant to the
very,
organization at all? Or
no, in fact, very, very rightfully mentioned. In the good old days, we used to look at YLL. One was a yoga, which
hmm.
was once a year activity. There would be
Okay, that's it.
leaves, and then there would be the LTA, for which you had to compulsorily take a 4-day block leave. Now, these
Okay.
were the three things that kept an employee very
Sorry, what
happy:
is that? Yogas? What is
yoga,
that? Uh,
leave, sick
okay.
leave,
Sick leave. Oh,
and
sick leave. Okay.
and the
Okay.
other is a compulsory LTA because you
LDA.
need to claim that
Correct.
benefit.
Correct.
So these were the three things which was considered as focusing on the welfare of or well-being of an employee. And as you rightly said, while it is not immersed, HR would do beyond Rangoli. They would also do some activities on yoga, laughter yoga, which tried to break the monotony. And I remember one of the organizations, they said, this is becoming too cliched. How can we break this to make it as a part of the lifestyle for employees at work?
Hmm.
So they started a 4 o'clock stand up 1 minute or a 2 minute session where automatically screensavers would come in and two or three yoga postures would be asked to be conducted by the employees,
Very
which
nice.
broke the monotony.
Very nice.
But if you look at it from today's perspective, that used to be more like a checklist activity of yoga, leave, and this. But now it is an integral part, right? Every person has a work responsibility which is a mix of operational, strategic, and there is a lot of stress that's building up.
Hmm.
Whether we like it or not, unfortunately, I'm in Mumbai, and you know this, Vipul. We are always stuck with some or the other infrastructure development, so people spend a lot of time on travel. There's a lot of pressure building up. How do you make time for people, your family, your work? And I think organizations have now realized that there needs to be some sort of a blending of a sort of a practice which takes care of your emotions, your feelings, and of course the competency, skills, and attitudes that you bring.
Hmm.
Because end of the day, if you have a mind which is active, a physical state which is supporting what is needed, I think the productivity automatically increases.
Hmm.
And I think it took us the COVID pandemic to move us out of the comfort zone and say, okay, this is real.
Hmm.
Anxiety, depression, burnout, stress,
Hmm.
all of these are never ever spoken about. But today it's okay. Today organizations have realized the importance of why we need to blend it in. Because
Hmm.
until and unless we create programs around it, you will continue to have the problem of saying, okay, I got the best talent here, but I couldn't make sure that he or she had an environment which was viable
Hmm.
to focus on the overall well-being. And I
Hmm.
think very quickly the pandemic made us realize, and while I should not say this, but it's thankfully better late than never.
I agree with you. I agree. At least that the leadership buy-in has happened, and not just for HR but for across the board. The leadership has bought into this, that this is now a necessary part of the organizational landscape. Raman
So
PSK has a comment. He says, "Yes, he agrees. Agreement plus commitment plus discipline is equal to fulfillment." Uh,
yes, it applies even for business, right? This is the same thing which we just need to extrapolate it to well-being as well. And I
Correct.
think thank you, Raman, for that statement.
So, is this whole, I'm coming back to our journey for the organization and well-being, so is this like more of a genesis is, we're talking now about it being an employee economy. We talk about it as skills shortages, war on talent, war for talent, etc., etc. In the last few years, maybe a decade or two, we've been kind of looking at that. I've been hearing about war for talent for the last at least 2 decades or so. uh, what do you what do you feel about that? Is this more towards that retention, hiring, or is it?
So, Vipul, we need to look at it from a completely different perspective altogether,
Hmm,
right? I mean, while yes, retention plays an important role, as you rightly said, for the last 20 years or ever since I started work, I've been hearing about the war for talent. If it is not war for talent, there is some or the other war which is always happening. And war, as we know, is always stressful.
correct.
So there is stress in, in some way or the other. Today, the stress is on the talent in a different sense. So Vipul has given me offer, Brillian has given me an offer. Should I join Vipul? Should I join Brillian? What will Vipul think of me? So it keeps moving around. The cycle is always on. But I feel beyond just looking at it as a one-time checklist activity, organizations have truly realized that it's not enough to get people on board by paying top dollar. What is important is to create a conducive environment right from the structural element of creating, I would not say best practices, I would say best fit practices for the organization. Just because a company like Google does XYZ, I will not be able to do it.
Hmm,
But yeah, can I do something which gives the employees and staff a sense of saying, okay, the organization is focusing on me.
contextual
It
footprint,
needs to be contextual and it needs to be relevant.
relevance.
Yes, I experienced something amazing in a foreign bank. Can I
Hmm,
expect the same in an Indian company? The answer is no.
not possible.
Some elements will come in. And Vipul, I'll share this
Hmm,
interesting element which I have done in my organization.
hmm,
Is I have something called as a CPO Connect,
hmm, hmm,
where I meet up with people who have joined new and I try to understand what is it that they have experienced in the past, what is it that we can do to make their time here at Times Pro a journey which they will cherish.
hmm,
And they came up with some simple thoughts saying, Brilliant, what? It's a fact that we come here, there is a lot of stress. Sometimes it's impossible for us to do anything. Can we have small breakout zones? Can we have a library? Can we do this? Can we do?
hmm.
And I sat to think about it and I said, yes, while we can't do really big things, what I can do is small things which can make a big impact.
Hmm.
And as an organization, I would say my CEO was very supportive in this when the idea was put forth. So today we have a small gaming center, I have a small lounge, I have a small library, and we create and curate programs where we try to bring people together just for some time and break that monotony of the stressful environment.
Hmm.
And I think very similar to what I experienced, every other organization has gone through it.
Correct.
And it is no longer just a checklist activity. And
Hmm.
I would say, as simple as it is not enough to just have certain things, but also you need to communicate and talk positive about it. It should not be अच्छा. So अभी तू gaming zone में बैठा है. Some people do it just to say कि मैंने game zone बना दिया, but then you see people there and then you start saying, oh, you're spending too much time out there.
I'll share an experience of mine. So I went to this very, very large organization, multinational organization, American organization in India, and they had this, uh, large recreation areas, and they had called us for a visit, to understand the organization ethos, etc., etc. And I asked them a question: why is these recreation areas empty? Why isn't any employee? Why don't I see any? And this was quite some time back. This was pre-COVID, and the HR person there answered, they don't have too much of time beyond their projects to spend over here. So then the whole purpose kind of is lost.
So Vipul, interesting element. I just want to share this. It just came to me. What happens is, unfortunately, many of the people have misused it.
Correct.
So when it gets misused, because of that 80-20 rule, you look at it, right?
Mm, mm,
20% of the people who misuse impacts 80% of those who really genuinely want to use
mm,
it. And I
mm,
think it has a big impact. And organizations are now becoming very cautious to say, can we now create timelines around it? I
mm,
was in one of the conferences where someone said that we should leave it to the employees to decide how they want to. I would say yes, that is the best case scenario. But do we have the tools? Do we have the mechanism? Do we really have the confidence and trust in the system that it will help us achieve that? Because we don't have it.
I know. I agree. No, Vikram makes a very interesting point, which is kind of correlated to what you're saying. And he says, Vikram Kalyanpur says that each organization needs to have its own communication cadence, which helps better employee experience. And
Absolutely. And adding to what Vikram said, I will say something as simple as opening up of workspaces and probably putting in pop colors and some posters. It
mm,
can create that added vibrancy, and the
mm,
experience changes rather than having just plain white walls.
mm,
If you come to my office, you would have seen earlier also, Vipul.
mm,
I
mm,
love to keep my wall filled with some memorabilia that I have collected over the year. I
mm,
have
mm.
some plaques, some trophies. It gives me a sense of belonging, and it makes me feel good about it.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Ambika has a question. Ambika Bharti, she wants to know how receptive corporate folks are in terms of psychological interventions after COVID. Even now, people don't easily open up. Another very
Yeah,
relevant question. So, what do
thank
you
you,
see
Ambika.
as a
Absolutely relevant, and I would say very similar to my earlier response. Corporates have now realized that this is something which is reality. At earlier terms like people being sidelined, I would like to call it as sidelined, is
Hmm,
no longer existent. Today, organizations are looking at ways and means through which they can facilitate programs, how it can help someone open up. So today, if you ask me, do you need an in-house counselor? My answer would be no, because
hmm,
there is a risk, because the employee or people in the organization would fear that if I open up to Vipul, Vipul may then talk to someone else. So what can the organization do is something what we did. We empaneled a third party independent of what we do. We curated a program focused on wellness, which was made available to staff plus their immediate family at this point of time.
wow.
If they had any stress, any depression, anxiety, where they wanted counseling and support without sharing names to us, they could directly access this service. They could go there, get counseled, and I am very proud to share with you, while we opened it for entire employee and staff base, there were at least about five of them who came back, and knowing the fact that they would be known, they came back to my HR business partners claiming that, this initiative really helped me,
Wow.
and thank you so much. Could I extend this for someone else? And we facilitated the process for them at a price, of course, because I
Hmm,
cannot be doing it for everyone. We
hmm, hmm,
anyway, we
hmm.
need to be conscious about all of that.
Correct,
But yes,
correct.
organizations are receptive, and if you really want to help and if you really want to be meaningful, you need to make sure it's an independent party where there is 100% guarantee of anonymity and confidentiality.
That's a very nice. In fact, that seems to be a very powerful thing to do. From an organizational perspective, from an employee perspective as well. Where you're creating a safe space for people to kind of share their problems, and a lot of times employees don't even know who to go to. People
True.
don't know. Generally, I have had people coming to me and asking, I'm facing this situation. Who do I go and talk to? Do you recommend anyone? And
Yeah,
and
good people, you spoke about this, because someone asking that recommend me an expert is
Hmm.
important, because many a times, sorry, but most of the radio stations, if you log in, every celebrity tries to become an agony aunt and tries to solve problems which ideally should be left to an expert.
Hmm.
It is best practice, I would say, for us as HR practitioners to do what is right and guide them to the expert rather than giving them advice which is not really healthy.
So I hope, Ambika, that answers your question. Vikram has a comment. He says that we got the employees' kids to share their fine art, and I know this. A lot of organizations did that. They engaged with the families of the staff and the employees, and they really had a good time there. On another note, I wanted to steer this conversation in a slightly different direction, I was reading a report which said that uh, mental health and well-being was the third biggest challenge behind labor shortage and retaining talent. So that was one part of the report. The other part said 19% of HR leaders said burnout was the biggest consequences of the pandemic. And burnout, which
Absolutely.
is 28%, and the blurring of work and personal life, again, another 28% said, were the top challenges for employee engagement. How do you see HR folks, you know, handling this situation where you talk about burnouts, you're talking blurring of personal, and this actually these are conversations that happen quite a lot. There's no difference
Absolutely.
between your home and your office now because you're working from home 24/7. So what are your thoughts on that?
So, Vipul, yes, I do agree with. While the numbers I feel is slightly on the lower side, maybe because of the sample population, but it is real burnout, and it's not just at one level, it is across, right from the junior most person to the CEO, CXO level. The burnout issue is very high,
Hmm.
and as rightly mentioned, it's because you're always on, right?
Hmm.
And always on means the moment there is a pop on your window or there is a ting on your phone,
Hmm.
you are bound. It seems as if you are chained to this and you need to respond. And that is where I feel somewhere HR needs to take a call and drive certain, I would say, practices within the organization. Some of the things which I have seen and heard, a couple of this we have also practiced. One is making sure that when a person is on a vacation,
Hmm.
to make sure that you don't disturb unless it's an exigency where it cannot be done without contacting people. It gives you a sort of a comfort. Two things achieved. One is you also get to know what are the kind of dependencies you de-risk, but at the same time, the person is out there enjoying his or her vacation, not worrying about what's happening behind at work. It is difficult to achieve, but I think with conscious efforts and proper planning, it can be done. Recently, 26th January was an off, Saturday,
Hmm.
Sunday is an off. So
Hmm.
27th came in as a odd man out.
Friday,
So
yes.
as an organization, we took a call to let people decide. Okay, this is the thing. You need to let people decide. Don't be directive. We
Hmm.
said if you really want a long vacation on 26, 27, 28, 29, you could work on a Saturday and take that long week.
Hmm.
50% of the staff used that as a extended vacation to get that break. And I have fantastic notes from my staff who says, Brilliant, next time there is a off on Tuesday, maybe you can start giving us off on Monday.
But this
In a
is
lighter note, but small things make a big
correct.
difference. And I think as HR professionals, we are in the right position to understand what are these small things. It's
Hmm.
not about the grandeur, it's about the impact that it has on someone else. I have always encouraged my team to be out of office physically
Hmm.
by a maximum of 7:30 p.m.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And if they have to sit late, they need to seek permission with justification. I know it is more like a stick approach, but I think somewhere you need to play that carrot and stick approach to say this is how you will benefit and
Hmm.
focus on the overall things. If you're well rested, if you're well relaxed, if you're not stressed out.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, Vipul, this incidents that I am sharing, a few times, I get messages from my team saying, "I am unwell. Can I operate from home?" I just send them a simple message: health first, take rest, don't work. Right? Take a leave.
Hmm. Hmm.
If
Hmm.
there's a need, we will reach out to you. But people feel that unless I am seen as working. But again, that 20/80 rule applies again. There are 20% of the people who tend to misuse, because of which then it gets back into a situation where you have to tighten the ropes. But HR professionals should be in the right position to identify what are the small things that can make a big impact and start pushing it slowly and steadily, making it as a part of the culture. And
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
everybody needs to lead with example. uh, to be very honest, there are times. I feel I need to cut off, I just keep my phone upside down. So I don't see the pings and the pops. Most of the
mm,
time it's on a
mm,
Sunday.
mm, mm,
And for about 4 or 5 hours, I don't touch it. If there is a call, I definitely attend, but I don't look at emails, I don't look at WhatsApp. And sometimes if it is urgent, people know that you have to call.
mm,
So
mm,
build in such mechanisms in a simple way, in a structured manner, which the businesses will also be appreciative of.
mm, mm, mm,
It
mm.
cannot be that the entire department is on leave and the business says, "Oh, what happened?"
So I think Vikram over here again says agrees to what you're saying. Extendable holidays are a great opportunity for employees to de-stress and re-energize, and the CEO and the executives need to lead by example. So he says CEOs must take a leave.
Yes, yes, and in fact,
Is
Vipul, I would like to share my CEO Anish, who is, I would say, one of the most progressive persons that I've
mm,
ever worked with. Every time there is a possibility of doing something like this, he's the first person to bounce it off and say, "Can we look at this? Can we do this?" For example, there was a prime minister's visit recently, which happened, and entire Mumbai roads were supposed to be
sure.
blocked. So he pinged me and said, uh, "Could we look at permitting people to work from home?" And it comes from there. So it's that, I would say, the level of thought that the CEO also gives is way higher than what it used to be earlier, because all said and done, COVID helped us realize the fact that focusing on employees wellness is important, and small activities make a big difference. So Vikram, I do agree, CEOs do lead by example, at least at times, through Anish does.
Raman has a comment slightly earlier. He made this comment. It was 2 decades ago as a part of wellness of the employee uh, and his her family was to bring them over at company's cost to get diagnostic checkups done. So he's sharing his experience.
Yeah, it is
Uh,
still there, people, but again,
mm,
it became more of a checklist
yes,
activity,
correct. I agree. I agree.
right? And as I speak, my annual health checkup is pending. So that's something which I've been saying, okay, ठीक है, कर लेंगे बाद में. So
Tell,
it's more like
tell me
finishing
this,
off that activity.
tell me this. How do you see HR handling this whole well-being role?
Very interesting. So let me start with my team. What all I have done.
Hmm,
Some of the things. When I joined way back, we used to be in a older office in Goregaon, a
hmm,
smaller office. And what I saw was I had a very good team who were foodies. And every time I would walk out of my room, I would see them binging on food. And I said, all this is good, but is it really helpful? So first thing I did is I changed to drinking green tea from normal masala chai. I shifted
hmm,
to drinking green tea, and the first 7 days were torture for me. To acquire that taste was difficult. And then I was thinking what I could do. Those days, the smart bands were not there, but there was something called as a Fitbit,
hmm,
which could count steps, right? So I gifted Fitbits to all my team members, and I said, every day, this is the minimum number of steps that everyone needs to do.
hmm,
Otherwise, you will have to forego one meal per week.
hmm,
That's
hmm,
that's something which really triggered a sense of a focus on well-being. We have been doing yoga. We have been talking about the function about the what I would say online access for counseling, etc. But from an HR perspective, it starts with the work environment. You and if I remember, it was Vikram who said, right, CEOs and execs
hmm,
should
hmm,
drive it.
hmm, hmm,
So why not lead by example? Let people know that, yeah, you are willing to do it. And how can you do it is focus on your immediate environment, which is your team. Start making those small changes, because who else but HR to drive it effectively, right? We work on engagement, we focus on getting talent in, and what is a better option than having a highly motivated, engaged, and a fit in a sense, not just physically, but overall fit talent who is willing to go all out. And this need not be done alone.
hmm.
While you start it, get the line managers included, because otherwise it is seen as, अरे HR ने बोला है तो करना पड़ेगा. If it becomes that, then again it goes as a checklist activity, and we need to think of it as a journey of intent to action.
Hmm.
While the intent is there, what are you doing? What steps are you taking to make action happen,
And
execute it, right? It will only happen when HR drives it jointly with the line managers and people around. And I'm sure a few years later, when you look back, you will definitely be proud to claim, मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग जुड़ते गए, wellness बढ़ता गया. And I think that culture is what we need to bring.
but tell me, I want to kind of flesh this a bit more. Okay, let's kind of discuss this a little more on this. So,
Sure.
at some point in time, there's too much of happen, too many things happening around us, and especially with social media and all kinds of cacophony around us. We feel that things kitna ho raha hai, so many things happening around us. You have this great resignation, quiet quitting, loud layoffs, and HR is at the center of all of this. Okay, now if we go back and look at our own past, uh, we what we were taught was more towards in our management courses and all of that. We were taught about how to manage an organization, how to manage processes, how to manage people to a certain extent, uh, all these different HR activities to be done. you know do you think HR folks are really equipped to handle well-being, wellness, or should there be a kind of a separate group of people created in organizations to handle this?
So, Vipul, you have directed 21 guns at me. Whatever response I give, I'm sure it will probably evoke a lot of emotions
It's a
amongst
provocative, yeah,
people.
it's a provocative question. Yes, I
It's a
agree.
provocative question, but
Yes.
I agree with you. The unfortunate state of the situation that we are in is we have never been told about certain situations. I remember the dialogue in Chichore which said that सक्सेस के बाद क्या करना है सबको पता होता है, लेकिन अगर गलती से भी कोई एक बार फेल हो जाता है तो फेलियर को कैसे हैंडल करे ये किसी को नहीं पता.
Correct.
And that is the status with which we work. But thankfully, organizations and forums like MTHR, Manna Wellness is also participating. They have realized the need. And as I said, why HR? Because we are there on the ground. We know people. We are all about people, right? What we need to build in, it may sound cliched, but yes, empathy tops the list.
Hmm.
You don't need to just do a course on empathy, right? You need to really feel empathetic, and you need to be aware of what happens. What are the alternatives that you can think of? One skill which I would encourage every HR professional, if they are not aware of it, is active listening. You mentioned about social media, and the problem is every time this rings I'm like, okay, just let me respond. Okay, Vipul, I'll tell you in some time now. What's happening is there are too many distractions,
Hmm.
and we've forgotten the good old art of listening to people. And we need to listen with intent. We need to be active in the zone when the person is speaking. We have heard about programs being created about how you should live here and now, but
Hmm.
it starts with your active listening. Also, at the same time, you need to know when you need to stop talking. We have been told that you need to stand up, speak up, and do everything, but there are times where you need to shut up. Sorry to use this word, but yeah,
Hmm.
we tend to throw a lot of jargons. We tend to know throw a lot of things. Everything changes with time.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
One area where I feel that HR should gear up, and every HR professional should be, and I would not call it as an expert, but be aware of, is to don the role of a counselor.
Hmm.
When do I counsel effectively? I don't need to be the expert, but I need to have that skills which will help me understand that this is a need and this is what I need to help. If Vipul is an expert, I redirect it to Vipul.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
the problem with many of us is that we want to have all those 355 certifications to
Hmm.
say, I am an expert in this, I'm an expert in that. I don't know what it's helping you achieve, but I would say focus on core elements, build that as a strength, and if required, reach out to people. You mentioned it at the start of the session, Vipul. MTHR has a group of people, right? We connect to each other, we bounce off ideas. Sometimes, if I need help, I post it on the group and I get about 1,000 ideas. I may use about one, but at least
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
am knowledgeable with about 1,000 different ways to tackle that problem. I don't need to be an expert in all of that. So I think, yes, HR needs to be there, but they don't need to be an expert in all the areas. They need to be understanding first. They need
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
probably get, uh, I don't want to make them paranormal specialists, but a sense, right? When you interview, you get a sense of whether this candidate will fit in or not. What is that
Hmm.
gives you that sense. So I think very similar to this, when it comes to wellness, HR needs to build that as a inherent trait or a characteristics that will help understand how things are working. What is it that has changed? For example, I would always see people smiling, and suddenly for the last 1 or 2 weeks, there is something which has changed. Am I able to understand that? Am I able to assess all of it?
So Umar Qureshi has an interesting question. He says, "How can we evaluate the mental well-being of a company where the team size is 800 plus?" I know you've kind of spoken about this a little earlier, but then maybe if you can answer
Yeah.
this.
So I would say, flip the question. Now, it is impossible, to be very honest, if you assume and believe that organizations can really do it, the answer is probably no. What needs to be done is, what are the kind of, I would say, I don't want to as a benefit, a system you create in the organization that is helping employees,
Brilliant, your
staff
voice is
be well.
fading. Your voice is fading.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Maybe a blip in the
Yes,
network.
probably.
So
Yeah.
there are multiple means, right? You could do an evaluation, but someone rightly said not everyone is willing to open up.
Hmm.
Now it's a task where if you want to do a checklist activity, you can just send out a survey and everyone will say this person is happy, this person is not, this person feels they are fit and fine, mental well-being is okay. But that's a, I would say, a wrong measure. The right measure is to see how much of absenteeism is happening, how many people are avoiding to have conversations,
Hmm.
what are the areas where you are sensing that while yes there is a facility that is available, people are using it. You can create a forum, like an online forum which is anonymous, guaranteeing confidentiality, and assess how things are moving. Putting a number to it saying that out of 800 so many people would be mentally fit, I don't think anyone has an answer to it. If you look at people who made us laugh, like Robin Williams, for example,
Hmm.
right? I never thought he was suffering from depression,
Yes, absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Deepika Padukone came up and spoke about it. Until and unless you take that ownership to say, I am willing to take that step.
Nice.
दो कदम तुम चलो, दो कदम हम चले. That has to be the approach. Organizations will provide you with systems, facilities, but you need to utilize it, leverage it, and make sure if there is a need, you reach out for help. The HR team is always available. And again, it's a matter of trust and building confidence. As I said, many a times employees are not really comfortable opening up
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
staff in the
Hmm.
organization. So
Hmm.
get an independent body to help you.
Umar, I think, also to add to what Lillian has been saying, is that you get your leadership involved in this process, and the communication needs to come, the ownership needs to come from them and not just from HR. It cannot just be an HR initiative, it has to be an
Alignment.
organizational initiative.
Absolutely.
Uh, okay, so coming back to one more question that I have for you. Uh, so we spoke about HR taking care of well-being, wellness. But what is the impact of all of this on the HR professional itself, himself, herself?
Whew, that's an interesting question, Vipul. To be very honest, we know that there is a gap. We have always been taken for granted everywhere. I mean, many of us laugh when a comedian talks about HR and Rangoli and all of that. I think we have been the best sports people that can ever be. We have taken everything with a sporting spirit, and we have said, "Chalo, theek hai yaar, if at least we are helping people laugh." Right?
Hmm.
But deep within, we feel that we are taken for granted quite often,
Correct.
right from comedians to maybe even organizations as well. They believe that this is how life has to be. Very rarely people understand that even HR gets impacted. I remember one conversation where people came to me in one of my organizations saying, "Brilliant, this is what is happening, and I don't know what to do." And that person is expecting me to help. How do I do it? Right?
Hmm.
And this is where I believe having a sort of a punching bag. I don't want to call it as a punching bag, but a forum where we can come together, share ideas.
Hmm.
I may not know everything, but do I have a forum where I can reach out and say, Vipul, sunna ye problem hai yaar, kaise solve kare?
Hmm.
Vipul says, I don't know. Maybe let's talk to XYZ.
Hmm. Hmm.
Raman has been doing something. Let's
Hmm.
talk to Raman. Maybe he gives me an idea about what it is. So somewhere I think while there are forums that exist, we have not leveraged these forums very effectively. It
Hmm.
needs to become as a ecosystem where I can interact, I can engage, and most important, share my ups and downs. What we have seen most of the time is we get to see, oh, this person won an award, this person did this, but we never hear from people saying, hey, Vipul, hey, MTHR, this
Hmm.
is a challenge. Very rarely people, open up because they are not really very comfortable.
Hmm.
And this is the opportunity for us, Vipul. I think while we know that the COVID itself has been very stressful on HR professionals, right from home, balancing work, leadership demanding, business demanding, existing talent demanding, there is too much of requests and demands on them.
Hmm.
So what we need to have is maybe like the Feb 5K group, right? We need to create those forums where there is someone who's motivating us, who's
Correct.
driving us for
Hmm.
outcomes without being intrusive. I want to use that
Hmm.
word very clearly. It need not be intrusive. It is like a nudge saying, "अरे brilliant आज हुआ नहीं." बोला, हाँ यार करता हूँ.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
A constant check-in is important. Today we forget that. Yesterday I asked a question saying, Vipul, you know what? I wanted to understand how I solve X, Y, Z. You didn't have an answer, and you say, let me check and come back. And probably because the way in which we are busy, you forgot, I forgot, no one really cared to check in. But maybe build a mechanism to check back and say, hey, brilliant, is this problem solved? That's
Hmm.
when I start
That's
feeling
an
okay. I have someone to bounce back. The pulse needs to be checked every week.
hmm.
Because if
Hmm.
I leave it to the individuals alone, I would say it would happen like it happened to me, right? COVID came in one small gap of about 5 days, and I forgot about marathons. I forgot about walking. I was just comfortable being lazy. And then came a nudge.
Hmm.
I started moving. So I think we also need to start looking at maybe the CEOs acting as, I would say, the directors in this movie, where they push us to say, okay, while we are talking of employees at large, let's also focus on HR professionals as a group to say, you are going through a lot. What can I
Hmm.
do to help?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
There is this interesting web series that I'm watching, The New Amsterdam, and this person wants to do a lot of things. He's going through a lot of problems, and the one thing that he always says is, "How can I help?"
Yeah.
And I think if we have that one person or
Hmm.
one group or one forum who will always be available to say, "How can I help?" I think we would have achieved a lot.
Hmm. So, folks, last few minutes, if you have questions, please ask. Else, I'm going to continue with my questions. Uh, so, again, coming back to this. And we are, as MTHR, as Mana, we have had extensive conversations around the well-being of HR professionals. Because we are in this space, we are closely seeing what's happening across organizations, even people, without even people kind of saying it so explicitly, one feels that there is a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress that HR folks are going through themselves.
Absolutely.
But do you feel that the leadership of organizations really recognize this? What are your thoughts around that?
You are putting me in a tricky situation once again, but the honest answer is probably no,
Hmm.
because as I mentioned earlier, we are one of the teams which are always taken for granted.
Hmm.
No one wants to hear a no from us, right? They always believe that whatever is being said, it needs to be just executed. So
Hmm.
I think somewhere, while yes, there may be exceptions to this rule always, right? That's how it functions. But majority is one one element that I feel missing is, where do I go today? I can't go home and talk to my wife and say this is what has happened. I don't want to stress her out. But
Hmm.
is there a mechanism? Is my leadership team, my CEO, my board thinking about how do we make sure that people who are managing people, not just the line managers, but HR in particular, gets a forum where they are also treated like everyone else?
Hmm.
Like, first thing that we used to do is participate in events, engagement activities, and there is a star which says HR members not
Hmm.
eligible,
Oh, okay.
right?
Hmm.
Because what happens is it is assumed that just because I'm a part of HR,
Hmm.
I will know everything. So there is a
Hmm.
separate team that works on it, but most of the time it is a star. And sometimes you do it with a reason, but from a wellness perspective, I think that star needs to say HR professionals must be included.
Must.
You change it, right? Mutual fund investments are subject to market risk. If you don't focus on HR, you are subject to further risks. That's how it should read. That's when the focus on people who are responsible for managing the entire so-called human capital, human resources, whatever names we may call it, that is that is the only thing that can help.
One quick question, Vikram has again asked a very interesting question. I want to get it in, before we end. How do you make well-being a value of the organization? Maybe a value proposition in the organization, maybe a value statement in the organization.
Wow, very good question, Vikram and Vipul. I think it's a tough one to answer, but I would say start with the why. Go
Hmm.
back to the basics. Why is wellness or well-being important? And the answers will automatically come in. It will help you directly on the business front. It will help you in retention. It will help you in creating a pull. So what is important is, rather than putting it up as a written down value,
Hmm.
show it in every action that you have, be it an employee, be it an external person, be it a stakeholder, be it a vendor partner, anyone. If you ask me for a single 5-step answer to say how do you make it, I would have said, oh, step number one, write it down as a core value. But I would say that will not help until and unless it starts with the top and continues till the last mile. It
Hmm.
will not become a value of the organization. It will only remain as some beautiful words on the board as a value, which is to be showcased, to be practiced, but never exercised.
Hmm. That's. I hope that answers your question. I see a lot of value in what you just said. So, with that, I think we come to the end of this conversation. Brilliant. Thank you so very much for taking our time talking to us. It has been a wonderful hour spent with you, picking your mind, understanding what you've been thinking about this. We carry on these conversations, by the way, folks, in our Wellbeing Dialogue series, as well as, we're going to release very shortly, we're going to take on an exercise for a study of well-being for HR professionals. We're going to focus on that. Very soon, we're going to talk about it, and probably next month onwards, we'll start talking about it. So please be a part of it, and please get your organization to be a part of it in as many ways as you can. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mana. Thank you to all who've been here. And thank you, Brilliant.
Thank you,
Signing off.
Vipul. Thank you, MTHR. Thank you, Mana. Thank you, participants. I enjoyed. I had fun.
My
See
pleasure.
you on the other side.
Thank you so
Cheers.
much.